Hey there, how's everybody doing? We're going to go ahead and do some video demonstrations of some of the techniques we talk about in the Sarno Music Solutions segment. The first 3 episodes we talk about miking techniques, which is really what's going to be the basis of everything that happens in a live mix. Probably the most important thing is going to be the kick drum. It all starts there. If the kick drum's muddy, the rest of your mix is going to be muddy. So we want to kind of get a tight, clean, punchy sound. The first thing that matters when trying to get that tight, clean, punchy sound is how you have the bass drum tuned and muffled. There's a million different ways to do it. Everybody likes something different. For this purpose, you kind of need a really tight, controlled, punchy sound as opposed to the wide open sound where there's no muffling in it at all and it's kind of ringy. That's kind of like that John Bonham sound. Stanton Moore likes that sound quite a bit, the open, ringy bass. But for what we're doing, it really needs to be tight and controlled. Now, this one, I like a super tight and punchy sound. So this drum actually has a lot of muffling in it. It's got a foam pad that's actually a really thick one. It goes about halfway around the drum on each side. And then in the front, you can kind of see there's a towel that does the same thing. You can have a thinner pillow, maybe it's just a towel that barely touches the front head or touches the back head. There's so many different ways to do it. But for this one, I like to have the padding touching both heads a little bit, just on the bottom, on the front head and the back head, and it'll give you a really tight, punchy sound. So the tendency with a bass drum mic, a lot of times you'll see a sound man, if you look, they just stick the microphone right here, just inside the hole, and that's kind of counterintuitive to getting that tight punch, because by the time the sound gets to the microphone, it's already starting to develop the wave and it's starting to ring a little more. So you really want to get it quite a ways in there, almost to the head. You want it to be lined up right on the center. It's really important to make sure your cable or your stand isn't actually touching the edge of the hole, because you'll get a rattle from it. So you want to get it pretty far in there, and then we adjust it according to the amount of attack you might want to get from it. So now if you're looking inside the drum, you can kind of see that the head of the mic is placed right on the center of the drum. I don't have a clear drum, so it's kind of hard to show you the angle, but right now it's about 3 or 4 inches from the batter head, and that'll give me a nice punchy attack. And it can be adjusted if you don't want quite so much click out of it, that initial attack. You can simply just move the mic back and pull it further away from the center, or from the front head, I should say. If you want a little bit more attack, you just get it moved in closer. It's kind of interesting to see other drum heads through this drum head. So you can really control it there as opposed to having the sound man do it with EQ. You want to use equalization out at the board as little as possible and use mic placement and tuning of the drum to really get you the sound that you're going for. Another interesting question that comes up is, what do you do when you have a bass drum that doesn't have a hole in it? Most times in a live situation, especially with rock, the bass drum will have a hole in it, specifically for the purpose of getting a microphone in. A lot of times in jazz or any music where you might want a more resonant sound, a little ringier sound, you're not going to have a hole in the drum. This one doesn't have a hole. It does have a very little bit of padding in it, much less than the other drum I showed you. I use this one more for jazz applications. And in that case, you're going to want to take the mic, and you don't want it right in the center of the drum. That's the dead spot. Nothing's happening there. It's where you're striking it, but as far as the sound wave moving, that's the deadest spot on there. So you're just going to want to take it about 2 inches off the drum and over here, kind of on the side, about maybe halfway between, or a little more than halfway out towards the edge from the center of the drum. And you'll pick up all the frequencies at that point. You'll pick up a little bit of the ring because you're a little further out, but that's counterbalanced by the padding you have inside the drum. So in episode 1, we talked about the bass drum techniques, and then here in episode 2, Brad and I talked a little bit more about miking other parts of the stage, not just the drums. One was the hi-hat, and traditionally this is what you would see from a hi-hat microphone coming straight down on the mic on the hi-hats. The reason being, for the way we do it differently, a lot of times there'll be a snare drum mic right here or even right here, and that's also going to pick up the hi-hats. And it's going to pick up the chunky part of the sound from this part of the cymbal, actually right where that's pointing. So if we move that hi-hat mic and we adjust it a little bit and do something a little bit more where it's coming right at the air pot, right where the cymbals meet. So right there, it's going to catch the high end, the crispness of that. You would want a windscreen on here. I don't have one, and the reason you would want it is because when those cymbals hit, a puff of air comes out of it. But you're going to hear all the high end from the edge of the cymbal. And then with that snare drum mic, you're getting the chunkier end. So you combine those two, and you get a real sweet, clear cutting through hi-hat sound. So that's the reasons behind the hi-hat technique that a lot of people, especially the Grateful Dead and Dark Star Orchestra and many other bands use when they're trying to get just a good, crisp, clean, clear hi-hat sound. So that's a little bit of insight about the bass drum and the hi-hat on how we start getting good miking techniques to really start the basis of our good live sound mix. I want to thank Brad for sharing this knowledge. You know, he comes up with a lot of it. He learned a lot from Dan Healy, who was the sound man for the Grateful Dead for so many years. And, you know, the Dead were really kind of groundbreakers in a lot of aspects of live audio production. So Brad's taken a lot from that. We had Healy on the road with us for a while in Dark Star, and we learned a lot and used a lot of these same techniques. So next week we're going to come back and talk a little bit about some of the other instruments, the guitars, the bass, and the keyboards, and see what the proper ways for miking those are. So until then, have a great week, and we will see you soon.